So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's Careers webinar. I'm Rhys Gorman. I'm the Chief Instructor at Portage Boat Station. We also have Daniel Gear from Weymouth Unit here, just as a second adult, just to keep everything safe. This evening's Careers Awareness webinar is on the Merchant Navy and Maritime industry, kindly arranged by the Merchant Navy Training Board for you guys, so very exciting. This session will be about 30 to 40 minutes, followed by a 20-minute slot for any questions. If you do have any questions, the Q&A box should be available throughout the entire session. Just plop some questions there as you think of them, and we'll answer as many as we can at the end. I'll just quickly hand over now to Rachel, Lorna, Roger and Hayden, who are all here to give you this presentation. Enjoy.
Hi everyone, it's really great to be here. Thank you very much for taking some time out of your evening to hear us speak. I'm going to start straight away by sharing my screen, so just bear with me while I sort that out. And this is the one I want. Here we go. Right, so hopefully you can all see that. I'm just going to go on to, hopefully you can do this. Is everyone seeing that? Is that right? Yeah, okay, great. So we'll start with some introductions. So my name is Rachel. I am the Training and Careers Manager at Careers at Sea, and that is basically a fancy term of saying that I manage the Careers at Sea programme. And I have the pleasure of being joined by two Careers at Sea ambassadors. We've got Roger and Hayden, and also my colleague Lorna, who works with Maritime UK, and she works more with the wider maritime. So you'll hear from all of us across the event. So I just wanted to hand over to each of the people listed so they can introduce themselves just quickly. So we'll start with Roger. Do you mind just letting us know what your background is and what you do now?
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Rachel, and it's a great pleasure to be here this evening, and I'm sure we're going to have a good session. Well, my background is very simple. I started pre-sea training at the School of Navigation in Warsash in 1963, and after sixth form and A-levels at school, I then went on to sign indentures with P&O Steam Navigation Company in 1964 and became a deck cadet, and remained with P&O until 1967. In those days, it was mainly shipping in P&O with general cargo ships and passenger ships, because in those days they were the main line runs down to Australia and to the Far East. But anyway, I secured my Officer of the Watch certificate in 1967, and then I spent a year as a deck officer with my own watch on the SS Iberia, cruising in the Mediterranean, and then on to a general cargo ship, one of the newest in the fleet, the MV Strathconnell. And after a year, I had the opportunity to go to university, which I took, and I studied at Southampton for 3 years and came out with a BSc honours degree in nautical studies. That set me off on a commercial career. So in 1971, I was taken back by P&O into their commercial department in the bulk shipping sector. And that all happened in August 1971. And from then on, the rest of my career for the next 40 odd years was in commercial activities within shipping. And for the last 10 years of my career, I was Secretary General of a trade association known as Intercargo, which was designed and set up in about 1980 to look after the safety and consideration of bulk carriers. And at that time, unfortunately, there was quite a lot to do. But we had a good time, and that was the last 10 years of my career, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And what I would just simply sign off on and say is that I have never regarded my work, my career in the Merchant Navy and to do with shipping as work. For me, it was always a hobby for which I got paid because I loved it. And that is the shipping industry for you, because once it gets into you, it doesn't leave you. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much, Roger. I'm not sure if we've got Hayden there, so he's disappeared off my screen. So Hayden, are you there? Are you able to introduce yourself? No, okay, I know there was some signal problem, so he might come back later on, so hopefully he'll be able to jump on in a bit. In the meantime, I'm going to carry on because I think Lorna has just stepped away for a bit. Oh, Hayden, are you back?
Yes,
There
can
we
you
go,
hear me?
Hayden. Can I actually just quickly introduce yourself, please? Oh, okay, so Hayden is frozen again. So we've got a little bit of signaling problem because Hayden is actually on board ship somewhere, so I will come back to him in a minute, but hopefully you'll meet him later on. Let's try handing over to Lorna, see if we've got some some success with Lorna.
Hello, good evening. My name's Lorna Wagner. So I'm the Programme Manager for Careers and Outreach at Maritime UK. And Maritime UK are the organisation that represent the whole sector, everything from ports to boat building to marine science, etc., etc. I'm a qualified careers advisor. I've been working with Maritime UK since May last year. That's enough of an introduction, I suspect.
Great, thanks very much, Lorna. So now you've met almost everybody, we'll be able to get back to Hayden at some point later on, I'm sure. But for now, let's crack on with the presentation. So I'm going to start by playing a video for you. Hopefully it will work and hopefully you'll hear. You might have seen this already. This is our promotional video for Careers at Sea. So, let's see.
Forget 9 to 5. It's 95% of all trade that's moved by sea.
And I'm a part of it.
Me.
Fish fingers for tea.
2 Bs in a C.
From double signs to container giants.
Escape art mission to bridge watch session.
Driving mum insane. Lifting a new car with a crane.
You can work your way up, they said, and I've never felt closer to the bridge. And it's true, the journey, inspiring.
All cylinders firing, night shift tiring. But 3 months on and 3 months off.
Good travel, they said. Photo of me in the med.
Gaming all day long. Waste of time. Wrong. Transferable skills that I never imagined. Teasing seagulls with chips. Only watching the ships. Now world-leading tech at my fingertips.
From kid doing school play to knowing that someday I'll captain this ship. It sounds like a script, but it's real.
50,000 tons of steel.
And I feel
Grateful.
for the place that persuaded us that a job much more than
Bright-coloured containers could be
For me, a career at sea, the best decision I made.
I'm helping the world now, and I connect it by trade.
Start every day with a brew. Not a bad view, but always remembering where I grew. Up on the deck.
new day,
New adventure.
never the same. So many hats.
Laugh with the lads,
A FaceTime with Dad.
Decent paycheck.
high tech,
To Quebec.
clean deck,
To see or not to see.
It's a no-brainer.
for me.
So that's just a quick intro to Careers at Sea. So you can get that online. It's on YouTube. It's on the homepage of our Careers at Sea website if you'd like to have a look at it again or share it out to other people who might be able to enjoy it as well. So feel free to share. Let's not do that again. So here we've got a couple of examples of vessels, and we've already heard from Roger about the kind of work that he did. So here's just an example of some of the kinds of ships that that Roger worked on, and we'll be able to hear more from other people about on the call about the type of vessels that they worked on as well, and a little bit more about what merchant navy vessels can look like. So we'll just crack on with the next slide as well, just to keep it going. So first off, what is the merchant navy? Now I'm hoping that the Q&A section will be open, and I wonder if any of you would be able to type a question in thinking, what is the merchant navy? You're able to give me any ideas about what you think the merchant navy is? See if you've got any answers. Give you guys a couple of minutes to put something in. Let's have a look. We'll have a little think about it, and what I'll do is I'll give a little bit of an insight into it, and then we'll see how many of you have got one. I've got one here saying transfer of goods across seas. Yep, that's a great answer. Commercial sector of the maritime industry. Yep, that's another really great answer. So you guys have obviously heard a little bit about the merchant navy already, because these are both brilliant answers. But you're right, essentially the merchant navy is commercial shipping. It is, you talked about the navy there. I assume you mentioned the the Royal Navy, and it is separate to the Royal Navy completely. So sometimes there is a little bit of an overlap. There's working at sea, some of the training is the same, but it's also got its own kind of channel training, which we'll go into later. I know that some of you have asked about specific information about how to apply and what that looks like, so we'll be able to do that. Someone else has said the Merchant Navy is part of a navy which helps people in need. I think yes and no is probably what I would say to that, that it is a section that helps people in terms of transferring goods, in terms of getting people and items from A to B. So yeah, it sounds like you guys have got a great idea so far, so well done for those answers. So does any of the ambassadors want to add in with their kind of input about what they would say the Merchant Navy is, in addition to any of those, or do you think we've covered it so far? Go ahead, Roger.
Rachel?
Yep, go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
Hello? Yeah, Rachel, if I could just jump in at this point and simply say that, of course, everybody knows what the Royal Navy is and what the Royal Navy does, but in terms of the Merchant Navy, its official title was granted by George V after the First World War, in recognition of the sacrifice made by the merchant service. And I think that is worth mentioning, because that is where the expression Merchant Navy comes from.
Excellent. That's an excellent addition, Roger. Thank you for that. Great. So with that, we're going to move on. I've got a couple of questions for you. So we talked a little bit about moving things from A to B, whether that be items like the everyday items that you'd use, the kind of foods that you'd might have every day in your fridge or in your cupboard, as well as items such as like iPhones and technical equipment and everyday uses as well. But wonder if anybody knows where the busiest ferry port is in the UK, because ferry also talks about transport of people. Does anybody know where they think the busiest ferry port in the UK is? Feel free to type your answers. Give you a couple of minutes to get it through. Got a couple of answers coming through. Yep. So those people are right. It is Dover is the busiest ferry port in the UK. So well done to everybody who managed to get that answer right. So I've just seen that Hayden has got his hand up. I think he's keen to throw in an answer there. Go ahead, Hayden.
I'm on my way to Dover now. I'm on board the Spirit of Britain, which is one of the largest Northern European passenger roll-on, roll-off ferries. And at the height of our in the peak of our busy point just before Christmas, we were moving around about 12 to 15,000 units of freight a day. And bearing in mind that at the moment we're currently not as busy as we were in previous years, that's just an idea of the sheer volume of freight that is moved via us.
Is brilliant. Thanks very much for that, Hayden, as well. And got another question here. It says, how many ships are in the International Merchant Navy fleet? How many do you think? This is International Merchant Navy fleet. See how many different questions we can get for this. Different answers, sorry, we can get for this. Wonder if anyone will be close. Gonna give you a couple of minutes just to, or a couple of seconds to get some answers in. Oh, very good. A few hundred, 750, 55,000. Lots is a great answer. So well done for that one. You're right, it is lots. It's around 50,000, which is a crazy number. And actually there's a few different sites that you can go on where you can have a look at the different ships and where they're going around the UK. And I'm trying to remember the name of one of the sites, and I wonder if one of my ambassadors will remember the name of it, but you can type it in on website, kind of watching the Merchant Navy vessels and vessels traveling all over the world, and you can zoom into particular areas and see how much different activity is going on in shipping every day, which you may not be aware of as it kind of carries on as you go on with your daily lives, because the Merchant Navy shipping fleet is going on 24/7, 365 days a year. So yeah, it's good guesses there, really good. I particularly like lots. I think that's my favourite answer that I've had so far for the number of Merchant Navy fleet, and you are correct, it is. Marine traffic is the site I'm looking for, that's right. So if you have a look at marine traffic, you can find that there, and I might be able to see if I can provide a link for that later if anyone is particularly interested. So let's go on to our next slide. There we go, which is ship comparison. So this is just to give you a bit of an idea of the type of vessels that you can work on. And I'm going to hand over to our ambassadors for this one. So I'm going to kind of pick on people if that's all right. So bear with me while I do that. And then I'll see if I can get up my notes as well, just to make sure we've got that right. So the first lot is a tanker, and you can see that the length of this tanker is around 450 meters, which is longer than the Eurostar. And then we've got a container ship, which is around 360 meters. I believe that there, I have got somewhere written down, which I'll find for you, one of the biggest container ships that exists. But any ambassadors want to jump in and talk about these particular vessels here? Perhaps you've worked on one of them. I think, Roger, you have, haven't you? And Hayden probably has as well. Let's start with Roger.
I don't have direct experience of having worked on a tanker, but I've had a lot to do with them. I've traded them. So what you've got here, this ship is described as a VLCC. It's a very large crude carrier. And crude oil is the cargo of oil that is shipped before it is processed, before it becomes processed into petrol or gasoline or diesel oil. So it is the crude oil, hence the very large crude carrier. When we look down at the container ship now, we are looking at ships capable of being able to load 22,000 TEU equivalents. And that a TEU is a 20-foot equivalent unit. That is what TEU stands for. And you will see these TEUs on every motorway in this country, moving backwards and forwards, going to port areas and depots. These are the containers that are carried on these ships. Sometimes they are, as I've said, TEUs, 20 foots. Sometimes they are FEUs, which are 40 foots. But the story is the same. They are all loaded in cells on the ship. And possibly we may see a little bit more about that, but that's how they are loaded. And that video that you saw at the beginning of the containers being moved in and out, those containers would have been carried in a ship just like that at the bottom, with the containers themselves being loaded into the ship in cells. So that's just a little outline of what we're talking about.
Thanks, Roger. And I know, Hayden, you had your hand up to kind of answer the question, but I'm just going to flick forward to the next two, because I think you can probably give us some good insight into the next ones as well. So we have got cruise ships on this one. You can have a look at the size comparisons there, as well as a ferry. So this is why, Hayden, I'll hand over to you now, just to talk a little bit about some of those, particularly the passenger vessels, which you've already mentioned, if that's all right.
Yes, certainly. So I've worked on both of those classes. Prior to working for P&O, I actually worked for Disney Cruise Line. So my boss was Mickey Mouse, and I was on Fantasy, which was 310 meters long, which was a huge vessel with regards to cruise ship. And we had 4,000 passengers coming on for a week at a time, starting in one location, cruising around the Caribbean, and ending up back at the same location, stopping off at all nice little places, including a little private island. And then the crew for that was 1,500. And as a deck officer, we are responsible for the safety of the vessel. So not only just the driving, but also the maintenance of the life-saving appliances and equipment, as well as the training of the crew in everything from fire drills to evacuation drills. So it's a really good varied job. The ro-ro ferries, or the passenger ferries, they come in a number of different sizes and shapes. So you've got everything from your high-speed passenger ferries, like that operate from Weymouth down to the Channel Isles, or from the Isle of Wight to Southampton, all the way up to your cross-channel ferries, or even your longer route ferries, which go overnight, for example, Liverpool to Dublin.
Great, thank you very much for that, Aidan. That's really helpful. And the last bit that's just going to come up here is going to be a tug, which are the kind of vessels that are might be smaller, but they are the kind of workhorses of the Merchant Navy fleet, and they work really. They work with the larger vessels to help them get in and out of port, and they've got some very technical abilities as well with their role as vessels, like I said, smaller but no less powerful, no less important. So just to give you a bit of an insight into the kind of vessels and the kind of work we're talking about when it comes to Merchant Navy. And I'm very aware of the time that is kind of slipping away from us, which is good. I guess it means it's going faster, means we're having a good time, but I'm going to try and go through these a little bit faster. So we'll start by talking about the jobs on board. So you would have heard from some of our ambassadors already about the kind of roles that they did. So there's the deck or navigation officers, and the deck department works on lots of different things. So like Hayden said, there's safety elements. I think Roger mentioned some safety elements as well. But you also have all of the navigation to do, and the other elements of working with other members of the team as well to safely get the vessel from A to B on whatever route it's doing. We've got the engineering officers. So obviously with boats, they're going to have these very large engine rooms that need to be maintained, need to be run, need to be kept running smoothly, and so you've got a whole team of engineers who will be working in the engine room as well. We've also got the electrotechnical officers. Now these are the kind of more technical side of engineering, but you can imagine on these large cruise ships that there's going to be some more technical equipment that might need to be upkept and looked after, so they're likely to be on more likely to be on those type of vessels. But you've also got everything in the engine room, from you kind of actually making the ship move, as well as things like refrigerators. You've got the water supplies, you've got heating, and all of those basic things that will need just to kind of maintain normal functioning on board a ship. So that's a very quick way of going through all of those roles. And we've also got ratings, who are skilled seafarers who work in these same departments, but the officers are sort of like the managers, and then you've got ratings, who are the supporting staff. So lots of different roles, lots of different ways that you can work on board ship, but all working together as one big team. So every role on board is really important. There's more information about the different roles you can do on the Careers at Sea website. It goes into specific details about the different activities and responsibilities that each will have, and there's also some profiles on our social media page about people who have worked in these specific roles, and they'll talk about the things that they did as well. So I'd encourage you to have a look on the website, have a look on our social media page for more information about that. We've also got some catering, hospitality and support services. So again, like Hayden said, if they've got passenger ships, there'll be some other elements of supporting passengers who are on board. Again, that could be on cruise ships, where there'll be kind of larger facilities for longer trips, as well as the smaller ferries that will go from A to B. They'll have things like cafes as well, and all those kind of things. And of course, every ship needs to have a cook. So no matter what kind of vessel you're on, every ship will have a cook. And I'm sure that the ambassadors will say that they are a hugely important part of the team. So not to underestimate the importance of that as well. So again, no matter what role, every role is really, really important on board ship. We can come back to questions about the specific roles later if we've got time, but again, I'm just conscious that I want to make sure you've got all the information you can for that. So there's also, we've talked a little bit about working on board ship, and Roger has talked a little bit about his work ashore or as well. And at the end of this, I'm going to hand over to Lorna, who's going to talk a little bit more about some of the jobs that you can do when you go to shore. So there's a couple of options here. There are roles that you can do that are based ashore if you're not interested in working on board ship, but there's also a route for people who start working on board ship and then choose they want to come ashore and can use their experience working on board ship when they are working in other roles within the wider sector. But I won't go into too much detail about that again, so I'll let Lorna do that later on. So here is where I want to be able to hand over to the ambassadors as well to talk a little bit about some of the experiences they've had on board ship, whether that be the kind of roles that they've done, the experiences they've had, the good stories, the challenges that they face. So before I hand over to the ambassadors that we've got on here, I should have on here a video from Chris, who is an engineer, and so I'll just press play on this and he will give you a little bit of insight into what he does as well, so you don't have to keep listening to me talking.
Hi, my name's Chris and I'm a marine engineer in the Merchant Navy. From a young age I was always interested in how things worked. I enjoyed the STEM subjects at school and later went on to study maths and physics at A-level. I knew I wanted to be a marine engineer at sea, but I didn't know anything about the Merchant Navy. So originally I'd applied to the Royal Navy as an engineering officer. It wasn't until I'd started my application process that I'd actually found out about the Merchant Navy. I applied to several different companies and got accepted with a cruise company. So I started a foundation degree and spent 3 years travelling the world, gaining lots of experience, meeting new people and learning the systems and machinery on board. And then after the 3 years I qualified as a third engineering officer and basically carried out an engineering watch, and that was my role for 4 months on board. I then decided that I wanted to change company to a ferry company, completely different type of vessel and run completely differently. I then worked my way up to first engineer and sometimes cover the chief engineer position. So what do we do as marine engineers? Our role on board is to maintain and operate all of the machinery on board the vessel. So as a cadet you learn about all the different systems you have on board, the different machinery you have, how to maintain this machinery safely and efficiently, and you'll learn basically how to work in a team and
So again into some of the ambassador stories that we've got, and so that is an engineering side, because I believe that we haven't had someone at the moment who's been able to speak about that, so we're very grateful for Chris for sharing that video. And actually this is a little plug that in February it's going to be engineering month, and we've got 2 webinars that are going to be specifically on engineering. So if you're really interested in engineering in the Merchant Navy, I'd encourage you to have a look at that as well, because we can go into much more detail about what that looks like, as well as all the other roles that we've got here. So just some quotes on, you know, everyone has a unique story, and Roger's got a couple here. And he can speak about those a little bit more in a minute, but I'll just leave that up there for you to have a little bit of a read. But I've highlighted a couple of bits that I thought were particularly interesting, and for example Stephen put the first step into the Merchant Navy was the first of many steps within the industry, and that again will link back to when I get to hand over to Lorna and there's some people who will work on board ship and stay on board ship for the whole of their careers, but there's also some people who might develop their career in other places ashore. You know, again, Stephen said, from the offset I could see a vast amount of options that this could provide for me. So again, talking about, you know, there's the initial steps working on board ship, but there are other options as well. And the second one, again from Stephen, he said, some of the places got to go ashore and some stories, and that strikes me as a brilliant opportunity to learn, travel and build great memories. So again, some interesting insights there. And someone here who actually started in the Sea Cadets, so they can say then they found out about the Merchant Navy, listened to experience of cadet instructors and training courses. So what I've said here is everyone has a unique story, because they do. What I hear from ambassadors, from people, is that every person's journey is different, and wherever you start yours, you can develop it in lots of different ways. So here's where I'm going to hand over to our ambassadors again, just to give a little bit of an insight. And because of time, I'm going to ask you please to keep it brief, because I'm keen to make sure that we get on to showing what we do to apply and how we do that. So if we can start with Hayden this time, is that all right? If he's there, I'm not sure if we've got signal. Okay, if Hayden is paused, can I ask Roger if you could jump in now? Would that be all right? And then we'll come back to Hayden when we've got signal again.
Yes, indeed. Okay, Rachel. Well, as I said in the previous slide, my father, as a young man, grew up during the time of the Great Depression, just after the First World War. There weren't many jobs to be had, and he applied for a farming scholarship in Australia. And the next thing he knew, he was on a ship bound for Australia, and he was down there for 2 lots of 5 years. And his experience was amazing for me to hear. And I was very much taken by what he told me about his time spent at sea. So that was one thing. The other thing about that was that I really wasn't interested in anything else other than ships, which is quite ridiculous because I didn't live on near the coast. But that's how it was. And so things developed from there. I joined the cadet force at my school. And I was lucky enough to be accepted into the naval section, and I rose through the ranks and ended up as Chief Petty Officer and in charge of the Royal Naval Department, which of course was a fantastic experience. And from there, as I've already said, I went off to the School of Navigation down at Warsash. My time at sea was in a different era. And we had much longer import in those days, and because of the way we worked cargo. And it was before the days of containerization. And in fact, it was containerization that drove me ashore, because container ships were coming along and they were taking out 5, 6 general cargo ships because they could lift so much cargo in the containers. And there was no promotion whatever in the mid-60s. So the best thing I could do was to try and get to university and study for a degree, which is what I did. And that's how it all started.
I just noticed we've lost Rachel. So if I hand over to you, Lorna, is that all right?
Are you able to get my slides up? Can you do that? No.
I don't think I've got your slides, so if you've got them handy.
I do have them handy, but I'm not being given an option to... Oh, I am being given an option to share my screen. Let's go for it. Right. Okay. Can you see that? Thumbs up. Can you see that slide, the maritime slide? Yeah? Yeah, excellent. Hello, I'll keep this brief because I think we're a little bit short of time. My contribution tonight is to talk about the parts of the maritime sector that offer jobs where you don't go to sea. So the maritime sector employs 1.1 million people in the UK. That's approximately 1 in every 66 people on our lovely islands here. But they're not all seagoing jobs. We've talked about the Royal Navy and the Merchant Navy, but the other sorts of jobs that you can be doing is shipbuilding and naval architecture, sea fishing, aquaculture and marine science, super yachts and the leisure boating industry. Ports, harbours and marinas all have people that work at them. Portsmouth Harbour, my cat always does this, I'm really sorry, she likes to join meetings, but I have to put her back down on the floor. Ports and harbours, the port in Portsmouth employs 3,500 people. It's like a small town. The cruise industry, we've talked about engineering, inland waterways, My personal favourite are workboats and tugs, but I hadn't realised they were the same size as Big Ben. I will remember that fact in future. And then all the business services that go around running our sector. So it might be that actually you're thinking about a career in law and you want to be a lawyer, but have you thought about being a maritime lawyer, perhaps? The kind of reasons that people come into the sector is that it's well paid. The national average wage is about £29,000 now. The average wage for someone in the maritime sector is £38,000. The sector has been charged with being carbon zero by 2050, which is a huge challenge for the sector. You know, when you're a small child and you draw a cargo ship or you draw a cruise ship, it'll have a big chimney on the top of it and lots of smoke coming out of the top of that. The whole sector has been told to be carbon net zero by 2050. So if you're a young person who's really interested in science and research and ecology and finding better things for the planet, the maritime sector is a good one to be part of. We know that the sector is expected to double in size over the next 10 years, to double the number of jobs, but they're not the same jobs. There's a huge amount of opportunities coming along for engineers that want to support wind and wave power generation, for example. I was talking to someone last week who runs a business in Southampton that they have robots which go underneath the hulls of cargo ships and cruise ships, large ships, and clean away all the sticky green. Roger will be able to tell me what it's called, but all the sticky green stuff that grows and sticks to the bottom of the hulls. There's a word for it.
Barnacles.
Barnacles, yeah. Well, this company have developed a robot which is half vacuum cleaner and half lawnmower, and it goes underneath the hulls of these massive ships when they're in harbour and trims and harvests away all that potential biological pollution, because if something has attached itself to the bottom of the ship in the Indian Ocean, we don't want that dropping into the Solent or into the Humber. And what's collected is then turned into biofuel. But that's robots. This is like James Bond stuff. So it's robots that go underneath the ships. There's another good reason for doing that, and that is once they've cleaned the bottom of these ships, the really big ones can increase their fuel efficiency by 40%. So it's a really important thing that they're doing there. Other reasons why people would join the maritime sector: so many different ways to come into the sector, so many different entrance points. You know about, we've talked a little bit about cadetships for the Merchant Navy, apprenticeships to get into businesses on shore to help you build your career. Ports are really strong advocates of offering apprenticeships, as are a lot of the large engineering firms and those that work in particular for the Royal Navy and in defence. So people like Kinetic, BAE Systems, Babcock, etc. Names that are known not just around the UK but around the whole world. So lots of ways to have your training funded, but also you can also go to university. Roger talked about going to university and coming out with a maritime qualification, and that is another of the routes. Lots of different jobs for lots of different people, never 2 days the same. And that whole opportunity to travel around the world, potentially to mix with really interesting people, and just to not have that boring job in an office or in a warehouse, but to be working in an environment that's really vibrant. You will get a copy or access to this PowerPoint, I believe, after this session. So there's some links there that you can have a look at. We've got lots of videos and resources on the Maritime UK website, including a number of virtual tours. So they give you the chance to explore around ports or to go onto ships or boats and have a look and see what it's like inside them. There's a great one that's, it's a little video, but it's showing the inside of a submarine. There's another one that takes you inside a canal boat, and my personal favourite was created for us by the Royal Navy, and it's of HMS Protector, which is one of the ice patrol ships that goes down to the Antarctic. But it was in dry dock, undergoing some repairs and maintenance, and the crew that were still on board created a film for us moving around inside the ship. So from the bridge into the engine room, into the galley, the PT instructor talked about, you know, healthy minds, healthy bodies. The people in the galley talked about that they were the most important department because they kept everybody going and so on. But it's a really interesting little film. And it's only 3 or 4 minutes long. So there's virtual tours, there's information activities, there's longer videos. There's one about a career in conservation. There's one about shipbroking, if you're interested in getting into the business services. There's a terrific one that explores Portsmouth International Port, where you can really see what the different business functions are within a port. There's also a link there to a video, which is a careers video that we had created, where you meet 2 young people that are just starting out on their journey. And I've got this bit, but I'm not going to run through it because we're very short of time, and I'm conscious that I want to leave you time for questions at the end, but it's maybe something that you could have a look at afterwards. I listed some job titles here, and some of them you may never have heard of before. And on the next slide are the answers. So I'm not going to go through them all line by line, but in theory, a naval architect, I've talked about how they're involved with ship building and repair and perhaps refurbishment. So supporting the design and technical care of a ship in its lifetime. A stevedore, that's a word that I'd never heard of before I started working for Maritime UK, but it's someone who works on the waterfront at a port, involved in loading and unloading ships. And in time gone by, that would all have been done manually. These days, they've got the most fantastic lifts and cranes and lifting equipment to help them to do that. Talked about wind farm. I'm told that there is a shortage of 22,000 engineers that are going to be required to help support wind turbine power generation. So if you're interested in engineering and you're quite interested in going to work on a boat out into the sea, the ones off the coast of Yorkshire, I think, are 70 miles away from the coast, and you're away for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, living and working on the boat, but going out to the turbines and servicing, repairing, working on them during the day. Things like how you get along with other people and how you do work in a team are going to be really important, because unlike Hayden, who's on a massive big ship, you're going to be in a relatively small space and have to get along with the people that you're working with. But that's maybe something you'd like to consider. Ship cyber security is something I'd never even heard of before a few months ago. But when you think of the development of robotics and autonomous vessels, so vessels that are driven by a computer rather than human beings, and may not even have any crew on at all, it goes back to that James Bond thing. You know, if someone can hack into the computer system, they just get the boat to go where they want it to go rather than where it was expected to go. And there's a whole new industry building up. So if you're interested in computers and computer security, and you've got an interest in the sea and boats and your cadets and the maritime sector, maybe you'd like to think about ship cyber security. A hydrologist is someone who works with water. Ports logistics officer is someone who's helping to move the vessels around the port, and cadet ships we've already talked about. I've got some contact details for me there, but if you want to find out some more about the whole wider maritime sector, just look up Maritime UK on Google and look up the careers pages.
Thanks, Lorna, and apologies to everyone for me dropping out there. My Zoom decided it wasn't going to work anymore, so thanks to Lorna for jumping in and filling in that last bit for me. I just wanted to start by answering a question that I saw earlier, because someone asked how to apply, and I'm pleased to say that how to apply for cadetship or apprenticeship working at sea, all the information about that is on our website under the page how to apply. So I'm just going to share my screen just one last time on this webinar here. So you can see here, hopefully you can all see that there's a page that says how to apply, and we've got all the different answers to these kind of of questions like whether you want to do deck engineering or which one you want to go for. Again, we talked about that of roles. How do I apply? You essentially apply to a sponsoring company, and we've got a full list of all the sponsoring companies that you can contact to get some information about that. And you can also look up some companies that might be offering apprenticeships right now if you want to look at that route. So how to apply, the answer is all on the website, so please do check out those pages. And I can also advise you that we've got places to study all over the UK that do cadetships, and they do open days. They're virtual open days at the moment, but if you're interested, we've also got a list of all of those, and if you go to there you can speak to cadets who are currently studying, speak to lecturers about the different courses and entry qualifications. You can talk to people who work in different departments. You get to see the places that you can study. So really encourage you to take a look at those and have a little explore for yourself around the website to find out any other questions. So I've got a question here. How long does it take to be a chef on a cruise? I think I'll try and answer that question. I think if you want to be a chef on a cruise ship, I believe that most people ask for some experience of being a chef, and then you can then take your skills and use them on board a cruise ship. So if you want to take that route, that is what I would advise. But a good place to check to see what kind of qualifications you need or how you start is to go to cruise ship websites, go to cruise companies and have a look at some of their open applications that they might be asking for and see what qualifications are there. I can see Hayden's got his hand up there, so if you could jump in and help with this, then that's great, Hayden.
Certainly. So the majority of the chefs on cruise ships are actually foreign. We tend to only have Western chefs for the really good restaurants. So you're looking at the Michelin star restaurants, and the people that get into that have worked in high class restaurants shoreside, and then they apply. So for example, at Disney, if you were to work in what we called Remy and Paolo, Remy being modelled off of the Ratatouille film, then you would have had to have worked in a top London or Paris restaurant to be able to get in there, and the same with the waiters and waitresses. The other companies that tend to take British chefs are more of the UK-based ferries. You've got the offshore sector, so looking after the oil rigs and the wind turbines, as well as the multifunctional tenders of the general lighthouse authorities, which is where I actually started my career, which is Trinity House for England and Wales, Northern Lighthouse Board for Scotland, and the Commission of Irish Lights for Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. So unfortunately, we are in a time where the sectors are more limited to us, but the opportunities in those sectors are greater. For example, deck officers themselves tend not to be on container ships once they qualify, but we're highly sought after in cruise ships, and then moving from cruise ships to the private yacht industry, which is now really taking flight. So it's not necessarily just commercial shipping. You've also got the private yacht sector as well that opens up once you get this full ticket. Unfortunately, if you go to the likes of UKSA, then you're limited in the size of ship you can drive. So my license allows me to command any ship of any size anywhere in the world. Whereas if you go to UKSA, then you'd only be able to max out for 3,000 ton.
Great, thanks Hayden. I've got another question here that says, I think that says, how old do I need to be to join? It depends on what, if you're wanting to join the Merchant Navy, then it depends, there'll be some restrictions within companies, so it's worth checking the websites, but it's more about the kind of qualifications that you have rather than your age, because they'll have a lower age limit, which I believe is somewhere between 16 and 18, depending on which company and which route you want to take, but each company will advise you on that. So have a look on their websites and they'll have specific information, because every company will do it slightly differently. Again, if you go to the Careers at Sea website, you'll find a list of all of the sponsoring companies and the links to their websites, so you can find out exactly what you need in terms of entry qualifications, both for age and for qualifications as well. Are there any careers in business management within the Merchant Navy? I'm going to say the quick answer to that is yes, and I would say have a look at the Careers at Sea website as well as the Maritime Careers website for the business sector that talks about wider maritime careers. To be a deck officer, do I need A-levels? Short answer is no, but there are some courses that do. So it depends what level. So this is the part which we didn't get to. So if you bear with me, I will share my screen. Am I still sharing my screen? I think I am. For officers, there's GCSEs or standard grades in Scotland, and A-levels or higher in Scotland for an officer level. So you don't need A-levels, you can go with GCSEs, but it might change what type of course you can do. For example, whether it's a foundation degree or a HNC or a HND or an SPD in Scotland. So have a look at the different types of courses you want to do and decide whether you want to go for A-levels or GCSEs. That's something that you can explore yourself. And also with the ratings route, if you want to go down the apprenticeship route, working at sea, then GCSEs or standard grades are there, but there's not necessarily a set standard. So there's lots of different entry routes depending on what you've got. And again, I think Lorna will be able to give you some advice on the different qualifications for routes outside of the Merchant Navy if you're also interested. Does anybody else want to add any more? What's the website to join? Okay, I will type in the website for you. So it is Careers at Sea, which is actually, I can give you the link at the bottom, careersatsea.org, and all of the links should be fairly easy to find, whether it's the how to apply, whether it's the study page, whether it's the choose your role page. All the information is on there. And Lorna, I believe your page, it's Maritime UK/careers, is that correct? Yeah, that's correct. So then you can have a look at that. I haven't got that screen there, but what we can do is send you all the details for the links to be able to access both bits of information if you want, or Lorna can write the answer to it there in the question. So I'm very aware of the time, so unless there's any last burning questions, and I'm more than happy for people to send questions to me if they want them answered. You can get hold of myself or Lorna and we'll do our best to do that. But for now, I think I might hand back over to our Sea Cadet host just to finish off, unless there's any burning questions last minute. I don't know, is our Sea Cadet host around? I'm not sure if he's there.
Yep.
There we go, hello. I thought I'd hand over to you because I'm very aware that we're close to the time, and apologies for the rush and the interruption in the middle from my my computer having a bit of a moment, so apologies for that, but thank you very much for hosting us.
Yeah, not a problem. I was just leaving a little bit of time. I don't think we're getting any more questions in, so yeah, that's us.
So
Cool. Just want to extend a thank you to all our presenters for spending some time tonight presenting to us. Lots of great information there, and certainly I use marine traffic that's mentioned earlier. Keep an eye on boats coming in of Port Edgar. All very interesting. Hope you all enjoyed that presentation tonight and found some of the information useful for those who wish to pursue careers within the Merchant Navy. This recording will go on to the training admin website if you want to watch it again. And just remember to keep an eye out for any more webinars coming up. Some were mentioned earlier, so they'll be advertised through the virtual Sea Cadet Facebook page, and just apply as you did for this one. Okay, thank you very much, all. Have a good evening.
Reese, just before we go for the cadets, make sure you let your training officers know that you attended this, because it is actually one of the modules, so you'll be able to get this as that module signed off.
Cheers, Hayden. Thanks all. Have a good evening.
Ciao.